Welcome to Residential Property the Right Way. Welcome back to this episode of our Residential Property podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about source of funds, and we're also going to be touching on ID as well. So I'm going to start off by just going to you, Dion, because you're the one who's there at the front. You speak to clients first, don't you, in our team?
Yeah, so I tend to have the initial client contact and onboard all of our clients. So it's really important that right at the very start we take ID because we need to undertake due diligence and money laundering procedures.
Yeah.
So typically the easiest way for us to obtain ID from a client is via a electronic link, which is sent via Credas. So I would email that out to the client and you would get a link to then attach photographic ID and proof of address. That would then come back to me and our compliance team, and then once it's been certified and approved by compliance, we are then able to take the initial client monies and start to progress your case. If you don't want to complete an electronic ID check, you are more than welcome to come into the office and bring your ID in for a solicitor to certify. So typically we'd need the photographic ID and a proof of address dated in the last 3 months.
And photo ID, that can be like driving licence, passport.
Yeah, correct.
And proof of address is a bit more tricky sometimes, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but I have got a detailed form that's put together that will explain what we can and can't accept. And just to make note that ID needs to be in date, so we can't accept a expired passport or driving licence.
A lot of people don't notice that their driving licence is expired. It happens a lot, doesn't it? And passport.
It does, yeah. It does. Yeah, and I appreciate there are quite a few forms to complete on the onboarding process, so more than happy for clients to give me a call to discuss that. If you prefer to come in to complete those forms, then that's absolutely fine. I can arrange an appointment with Tony or Fern. Or if it's just general completion of forms and ID, then I can always pop down if they're not free.
I think it's quite good actually, because what you do is you go through all the initial, hi, this is who we are, this is the initial stuff that we need from you, and the clients get a relationship with you because of that. And then when you've done all your bit and you've done the onboarding, so you've got the ID sorted, you've done everything else, you would then pass it on to us, Fern, Kavita or myself, to start the ball rolling with the actual work. So the initial administration side of thing is all dealt with, so we don't have to worry about that ourselves. So it's really important what you do and actually getting that role sorted. So I think that's really quite useful, knowing what you look for, so that people know when they're coming to us that they've got to deal with that.
Yeah, and clients love you as well. I
think
they're a bit disappointed when they realise that they're not dealing with you. They've got to come
You're
to
not
us.
running the file.
They want to speak to me and not you. Yeah. No, it is nice. I think that's probably my favourite part about the job, is having that contact with all of the clients and keeping them up to date, and just, dealing with any queries that they've got head on. Because it might be typically sometimes that we can resolve it before having to involve either yourself or Tony. Yeah. So Fern, there are quite a few forms for us to complete at the initial transaction, and obviously they do depend on what type of transaction that we are dealing with as to what forms we need to complete. But during a purchase we will request evidence of source of funds. So why do we request this, and why is it important that our clients engage and get this completed early on in the transaction?
So I'll start by saying it's not because we want to have a look through your bank statements to see how many times you've been spending money at Tesco or going to the pub or whatever. We need a source of funds from everybody if they're providing money towards a purchase, and what we need can really depend on where your money's come from, basically. So we start off generally by asking that question, don't we?
We do.
How much are you putting in, and has it come from yourself? Has it come from savings, investments? Perhaps it's come from inheritance. Perhaps it might have come from a gift. You're going to go on to that in a minute, aren't you, Tony?
Yes, yeah.
And generally, we ask to see sort of 6 months of bank statements because a lot of the time it's just generated from income. So, you know, say for example, you know, you're putting away money from your income every month. We just need to see that being tucked away. If it's inheritance or if it's money from a sale of a property or something like that, then we just need a letter from a solicitor to confirm that. And then investments and shares and things, we need a sort of certificate type thing, don't we?
Yeah. Got to confirm it's been sold. And then also just to see the funds arriving into your bank account as well. So for example, with the sale of a property, if you've got a completion statement that shows that you sold the property 2 years ago and you've got X amount from it, we'd like to see the bank statement that shows that the money arrived in from the solicitors, because then we've got that evidence there.
Yeah. And like I said at the beginning, we're not doing this just because, you know, just for fun and
I have
jokes.
seen some very strange things.
I
in
know,
bank
yeah, me
statements.
too. We all have, but it's part of the process. And believe me, if you're embarrassed about providing your bank statement because they think there's something in there that we might see, we have seen it all. So do not be embarrassed.
We have. But gone are the days when you could go into your solicitors with a suitcase full of cash.
Yeah, no, gone are those days.
I've never had that. I've had the cheques.
You've had
to go and get the cheque from the mortgage company, like Halifax or whoever. Go and get the cheque on the day of completion and take it to our bank to pay it in to then use it. But you don't even do that now.
Gosh, and imagine like if it bounced as well. That's.
Oh, you'd like to think not. If it came from a particular bank, you'd like to think that it would go through. But
So we do it because of things like the Proceeds of Crime Act, and we're regulated as well. There's solicitors' accounts rules as well that mean that we need to basically have all of that on file, otherwise we'll get in trouble.
And they can spot check us, which is always a worry. So we have to make sure that we've looked at everything. And it's not just also if we have your bank account details, your statements. It's not just the money coming in that represents the money that you're buying. We've also got to look at the whole statements to show what happens throughout the month for the statements.
Yeah.
Which is something that compliance are very keen that we make sure we know what your usual transactions are, so that it would highlight any red flags.
It sounds scary and intrusive, but it's all part of the process. And essentially, you know, it's our job to get you to completion, to get you to exchange and completion. We don't really care about, you know, how. We just want to get you there. We've all got the same goal, haven't we? Yeah. I try and get this done and dusted as soon as possible. So if I've got any advice to anybody that's got to do this, I've got 2 pieces of advice actually. Make sure you've got your ducks in a row. So a lot of people won't be aware that they need to give these bank statements, and especially for things like investments and shares and things, it can take a week or 2 after requesting those from, I don't know, St James's Place or whatever to get those through. So it's make sure that you've got all that ready in advance. You need to account for where all your money's coming from, and that includes stamp duty and our legal fees as well.
Yes.
Not just the purchase price. And then my second piece of advice would definitely be this touched on what we said a minute ago. If you are thinking of buying a house or you're thinking of moving, just be careful what you label your payment references as, because there's a few instances, isn't there, of like, you know, sort of boys will think it's funny to send money to their friends and label it as something.
Yes.
Yeah. If that's labelled as something incriminating, then, and I have seen that. Then obviously we just have to be really careful with that. So just have a think about it, and if you are getting, you know, payments from your mates as a joke with funny references, then tell them to stop, because it's not going to help you.
Doesn't help.
No.
And I think one thing everybody now does is you move your money around. You know, you have your money in one account and then you move it to another account because it's better interest or whatever. Again, we just need to see that money going from account A to account B and then maybe back to account A again. It's literally, we have to follow those funds. So it's not just a case of, this is my bank statement that shows I've got £100,000 in it now, I can afford to buy this property. It's, well, where's that £100,000 come from? has it been in that account for say 6 months? If not, where was it beforehand? How did you get it? It's all those questions that we have to look at, and we have to get the whole picture. And then once we've got the picture, we can sign it off. But if we've got any concerns, we would pass it to our compliance team, and then they would look at it. And sometimes we have to do that anyway if it's a particularly difficult, or if there's loads of information or something like that, then sometimes we have to just get input from third parties anyway within the firm. But it's just something we would rather have more information than not enough. It's easier for our job to be swamped with information, to actually picture what we need to get, work it out, and then sort of say, right, yeah, we're happy, than have to keep saying, you've provided us with this, but we need this now, and then you provide that, and then actually it shows that there's more information we need. Just give us everything that you think we might need to show from point A to point B, really.
Because everything that we get, everything that we ask for, obviously going back to what I said a minute ago, we're strictly regulated.
Yes.
And we have to keep everything strictly confidential. So
Of course.
anything that you
Yes.
send to us it is kept completely confidential.
Yes.
So I've had people who had, you know, like they've won premium bonds, and you know they've won huge amounts of money.
Lottery winners.
And they don't want to. They don't want you to know that. They don't want it because they don't want anyone to know that.
No.
And that's if you know we have to know that because we need to know where the money's come from.
Yes.
We're not going to shout it from the rooftops. Don't worry. We're not going
No.
to sell your story to the sun because we'll be struck off.
Absolutely.
So would that be the same as gifts then, Tony? So if we were getting a gift,
Someone's getting a gift.
So with gifts, it's exactly the same thing. So say, for example, you're a first-time buyer, you're getting a gift from your parents or your grandparents. We, again, need to know where that money's coming from. So we would need to ID the parent or the grandparent or whoever's giving the gift. We need to make sure that we have got their ID sorted. So that might be back to Dion to do a CREDAS link again, or passport proof of address, something like that in practical terms if it's not through the link. But also, again, we need to look at the source of funds, so we need to look at where that money's come from. It might be a bulk payment from a pension, it might be that they've sold some shares, but we need to go through the whole process with them. If that money is then coming into your account or even coming direct from them to us, we still need to know where that money's come from. So it is important, and lots more people are getting gifts now, particularly with house prices being as they are. People can't afford to buy first-time properties without help.
A lot of mums and dads are going, instead of you waiting for this in our inheritance, we might as well give it to you as a lifetime gift now, because it's more useful to you now than it is when you know later on in your life. So you
want to see your kids or your family settled, and you want to make sure that they're okay and that they can have a better property than perhaps if it was maybe £10,000-20,000 less in a different area or something. You know, you want to help them. But one thing I would say is, if you're having a mortgage, your mortgage company will invariably ask questions about where the source of funds is coming. So you might have already gone through this exercise, possibly to a limited extent, with your mortgage company or your financial advisor.
You've got to do it with us as well.
You've still got to do it with us, I'm afraid. We can't rely on that. And also, you might need to do something called a gifted deposit declaration for your lender, which is where we turn around and get whoever's giving you the gift to sign something to confirm that it is a gift, that that person isn't getting an interest in your property, that you're not going to repay it, because the lender wants to make sure that nobody else is going to have an interest in your property, and that it's not an additional loan that you can't then afford to pay back. So again, it's something else that we need to think of. So just having the overview of where your money is coming from and working out what we need and then getting it from you, that's a big chunk of the conveyancing process, you know, before we've even started actually doing the legal work. And I know, like Fern said, it does feel quite intrusive, but we have to do it. It's important.
And to get it done and dusted as soon as well into the conveyancing process, it just takes the strain off, doesn't it? So
the worst thing is being in a position to exchange and we're still asking for some extra money to come through, proof of where extra money's coming from, and that's frustrating when you really need to be pushing to exchange. So
this is sometimes where you know where people are going, it can't really take 12 to 16 weeks. It can when you're still trying to obtain paperwork from people and get to the bottom of things like this. So this is where the work comes in. It's a lot of work for the people buying and selling. It's a lot of work that they've got to do, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you'd think if your money's in the bank, you'd think, well, the bank must know where the money's come from. But oh no, we still have to do the work.
I think that's it for this week, isn't
I
it?
think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we've had a good chat about that. So thank you for listening, and we'll wrap that up for this week, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.